In this Easter season, it's a little jarring at first to have this gospel where Judas leaves the disciples at the Last Supper to betray Jesus. When Judas had left them, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified." So it's kind of strange to be brought back to that moment here in the season of Easter, of Judas's betrayal. But it's telling us something about Jesus' love for us, and something about the love that we're called to. Right? It can be perplexing at first. When Judas had left them, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified." Judas is leaving him to betray him. How is the Son of Man glorified in that? We can ask. Well, it's the beginning of his paschal mystery. It is going to begin his passion, death, and resurrection. But Jesus doesn't say the Son of Man is about to be glorified. He says, "Now is the Son of Man glorified." So how is it that Judas' betrayal leads to the Son of Man being glorified? Well, it has to do with a certain understanding of God's glory. We can grasp it in a simple syllogism. If God is love, then the glorification of God is nothing other than the glorification of love. And Jesus giving himself without expecting anything back, giving himself up to death, giving himself to the utmost, he's glorified. In the face of betrayal, Jesus still loves, and that glorifies love. If God is love, then the glorification of God is nothing other than the glorification of love. That's how the Apostle John can speak of Jesus' cross as his glorification, as his exaltation. The Son of Man will be lifted up on the cross. God's glory shining forth, his love shining forth on the cross. As the Lord Jesus pours himself out for us, hands himself over to us in love. And the glory of God then is made present in our own midst. Think about the Eucharist. It's the same gesture. The host will be handed over to you, just like Jesus was handed over in his passion. And it's the glorification of love. So if we have the eyes of faith to see it, on this altar, we'll see the glory cloud of God descend upon this altar as Jesus becomes present to us. With the eyes of faith, we see God humbling himself to become a little host for us and to be handed over, just like he was handed over in the Passion. It's the glorification of love before our eyes. Just like if we were at Calvary and had the eyes of faith to see it, we would see God glorified on the cross as he pours himself out in love. So too at this altar, with the eyes of faith, we perceive the glory of God. Love humbling himself. Love handing himself over in the host. Love pouring himself out in the precious blood. And the Lord Jesus then takes us up into his own act of love. So we too can hand ourselves over for others. Service of your families, and service of the community, and service of God. To be like that Eucharistic host handed over. To be like that Eucharistic chalice poured out for others. As I have loved you, Jesus says, you also should love one another. This is how all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. We manifest God's own love as we are handed over for others, as we are poured out for others. Right? St. Paul takes up that theme. He's being poured out like a libation in the service of the church's faith. And we need the Lord to do this. We need the Lord to do this. The rule of St. Augustine, the monastic rule of St. Augustine, speaks about as a community being united with one mind and one heart in God. And that last phrase is important, in God. We can't truly be united in mind and heart, completely give ourselves totally to one another apart from God. So to be of one mind and heart in God. A married person once shared with me that important for her in her marriage was discovering that, just over time, that the marriage wasn't going to work out unless God was first. Because there was a football player. She used the example of Gail Sayers. I don't know if people know him. But a football player, he wrote a book, I Am Third. I guess it got turned into a movie. I've never seen the movie, but... so I am third. God first, my neighbor is second, and I'm third. And she said that was the key to their marriage. We can't really, as sinners especially, we can't really enter into true communion and self-giving love unless God's first. It has to come from above. So we see in the book of Revelation, our second reading, we see the holy city of New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Behold, God's dwelling is with the human race, right? And that's the only way we're going to be truly united. If it's God's first, and his love flows out to us and through us. Behold, God's dwelling is with the human race. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will always be with them as their God. And this is the one who will make all things new. Behold, I make all things new. So we approach our self-giving God, our God of love in this Eucharist, asking for the grace to share in his own love as he hands himself over to us in love, and his glory is made present in this sanctuary, hidden. Through the eyes of faith, we grasp the glory of love being poured out, that we might be taken up into that love ourselves and hand ourselves over for one another.